Well, hello, Indianapolis Motor Speedway fans. Doug Boles here alongside the great Mario Andretti. We're going to wait a few seconds while folks have an opportunity to join us here and everything populates, so folks don't miss out on the second edition of our Miller Lite Time with Winners tonight with one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time, Mario Andretti. So we're looking forward to a few minutes to chat with him. So let's give us another 15 or 20 seconds. We'll let folks join here and we'll get started.
I like all that beer you got back there. We have a party back there?
Unfortunately, we have to social distance. Otherwise, I would be sharing it with you. All right. Well, on that note, we'll get started. It couldn't be a better way to start. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us for the second week of our Miller Lite with Indianapolis 500 winners. And we are really excited to be joined tonight by 1969 Indy 500 winner and all-time great Mario Andretti. What I love the most about Mario Andretti is not that he won over 100 major races in his career. He's the only driver to win in NASCAR, the 500, and the Formula One championship, all of the accolades. What I love about Mario Andretti is he has not slowed down a mile per hour from the days he was beating people to a pulp on the racetrack. He is one of our best spokespeople. And if you ever see him at a racetrack, there's never a moment that Mario Andretti isn't going 100 miles an hour from one place to another, trying to continue to make our sport better. Mario, thank you for spending a little bit of time with us this evening as we're all sort of hunkered down in our homes.
Oh, gosh, thanks for having me, Doug.
You know, let's just get started with just want to talk about you. You know, you think about race car drivers today, they're so specialized. From the moment they get in a go-kart, they know exactly what they want to do and where they're going to want to go, and the path is so narrow. You took this really, really wide path and were successful on all of it. And at the end of the day, are arguably the most successful race car driver ever. Why is it that today people don't come up racing cars like you? You raced everything.
Well, it's hard to say, but time evolved, you know, and you cannot expect things to remain the same in that respect. But, you know, you have many of the, you know, series that from go-karts, you know, to Formula Fords and on, you know, 2000. You have all of these supporting series that obviously you have a chance to you know, to get familiar with and then just jump up the ladder. In the days where I was coming through, you know, I was just started with the local sportsman stock cars, and then I wanted to get into open wheels. So I started with the 3/4 midgets, full-size midgets, and of course the natural step was to sprint cars. And from there to champ cars. And once we got to champ cars, then I started looking into sports cars. And luckily, beginning in 1965, even USAC started venturing into road racing. As you can see, the first road race for the championship trail was Indianapolis Raceway Park, Claremont. So, as you know, as fate would have it, I won that. And that was the only race that I actually won that year. But I wound up with winning my first national championship. You know, as my rookie season, finishing third at Indy didn't hurt at all, obviously. So it was a very auspicious beginning for me. But as you could see from there, you know, my sights were into, you know, expanding, mainly because I just wanted to race more and more than what the usual, you know, champ car schedule had. But what was great about the champ car schedule too was that there we had a road race, and then, you know, the ovals on pavement, and then we had the dirt tracks, you know, that we had all the, you know, 4 or 5 dirt track races that were all counting for the championship. So again, I think from a versatility standpoint, you had to pretty much get it up, you know, in all of these situations. And that's what really, that's been really the class of Indy cars, you know, as time progressed, because here, you know, more and more road courses, street courses throughout. I mean, we raced, you know, pretty much all over the world at one point, but, and then the venerable ovals remain, of course. And that's why I always claim that, quite honestly, I think at the top level, I think the most complete champion, I think, is in IndyCar champion, because of the fact that you have to be able to succeed and, have good results in all of these areas, so, and again, the interest is still there just because of that.
It's funny you touch on that. So the NTT IndyCar Series this year is focused on their brand, and they're calling it a different breed. And a lot of that reason is because of what those drivers do. They don't just focus on the street courses or the road courses or the oval. It's a combination of everything. And so I think today even you feel some of that what you just talked about maybe coming back, because it is a complete championship with all of them. What's really interesting about you, when you were running in the 70s, you start winning in Formula One, you're still competitive in IndyCar, but you're running short tracks, you're traveling all. Talk a little bit about how crazy your schedule was in the 70s when you were trying to race in F1 and winning, and also trying to maintain some racing footprints here in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back, I think I'm blessed that I had those opportunities. Something you'll never see again. Obviously, going from a dirt track, from a dirt track like Springfield or DuQuoin or Sacramento to a Formula One race, and I did that. Just in one weekend, Bobby Unser and I went to the Italian Grand Prix, and then the Who's Your 100 in between, on the same weekend. And again, it's something that I just thrived on, to be able to just not just race, but be able to, sometimes really get the best result out of both ends, which as far as a category or discipline, it's as far apart as you could be, from a dirt track to a Formula One car. But I feel that dirt track racing actually helped me to deal with the wet conditions in not only in IndyCar, but Formula One as well. Because sometimes the Europeans always felt, okay, American hotshots coming over, wait until it's wet. Well, you know what? We do pretty well even in the wet. I think they said the same thing about Kenny Roberts when he went there with motorcycles. Where did he learn how to deal with really wet conditions in a motorcycle? It was on the short tracks, on the dirt tracks. When he so don't. You know what I mean? We're still there. Don't count us out.
Speaking of motorcycles, you try your hand at motorcycles at all over the years?
No, I just I always had, I have a good motorcycle in my garage, at one of those real sporty bikes, but and I try to be like Kenny Roberts or or Rossi, but I'm trying not to do so much of that, because as soon as I get on the saddle of that thing, it's 90 miles an hour or nothing, so it's pretty dangerous on the roads.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the really neat things I think about your family is you think about what the Andretti family has meant to the sport, and it started out with you and your brother, and it's passed down now to where your grandson's still driving. You had an opportunity to do the 24-hour race with Michael. You've been around. Talk a little bit about what it's been like to watch Michael and all his successes, and then be able to be a grandpa and be able to, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway seems to love Marco, and Marco seems to love that. And that feels like one of those places where Marco has a really great chance at breaking out. And just talk a little bit about what racing has meant to your family, 3 generations, nephew with John, obviously with Jeff drove as well. I mean, it is in your family DNA.
Yes, no question. I mean, Aldo and I started this mess, obviously. And as you can see, both sides, we have third generation driving. As you can see, obviously, Aldo wasn't so lucky at the beginning, but it was not his fault. But, his career was kind of cut short. But here it is. I mean, his sons just continued. And as you can see, right now, you still have Adam, and then you have third generation Jared.
Yeah,
going on, and of course with Michael, Jeff. I had so many events. I mean, just look back, even at Indy back 91, 92, there were 4 of us that started that both years, and it never happened before or since. 4 members of the same family there, and then there were events, other events where. I remember in 1986 at the Pocono. I keep saying that because I'm very proud. Pocono 500, they had the supporting race with the ARS, like it's Indy Lights. And Jeff was on pole for the Indy Lights. He won the Indy Lights race. Michael was on pole for the 500, and I won the 500. Between the three of us, we cleaned house. You know, are events that that only us we could appreciate. You know, but and the other part too, you know, with Michael, you know, we were teammates, but you know, Mike and I were on podium 15 times in an IndyCar race, and started in the front row 10 times and finished, you know, 1, 2, 5 times. The only bad part about that, he won 4, only won 1. But other than that, you know, I said, oh gosh, that kid. But then I said, well, that's my boy.
I think I recall going to Milwaukee one year and 3 Andrettis ended up on the podium, you and Michael and John. And being an AJ Foyt fan, I think we struggled maybe that weekend and seeing the Andrettis just sweep that. But that was not unusual for more than one Andretti to be on the podium. And as a dad, that there had to been, those have to be some of the most special moments as you look back in your racing career, those ones that you got to share with Michael.
No, absolutely. You cannot imagine just how good the sport has been to us. You know, in general, we have, you know, to me, nothing but fabulous memories. And obviously, the story continues. You know, we have a lot of skin in the game still. And, you know, the love for the sport has never diminished, certainly from my side. And, you know, with the ambition that Michael has, even as an owner, obviously, it looks like we're going to be around for quite a while. And then Marco is young, you know, we're going to see the best of him yet. And then we got Jared coming on as a young lad, still Adam on Aldo's side. So as you can see, we don't know anything else, but we certainly love what we do here with the sport. And as you can imagine, we just can hardly wait to just get going, go to work again. Just jumping at the bit as you, oh gosh, you know, we have so much energy pent up, you know, that, you know, every day is going to be a big explosion once they let us out the door.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I mean, it's really tough to walk in the speedway and see nothing going on there, right? I mean, some construction, but on days when you want to see cars on track. But, you know, you touched on it. It is fun when you see, you know, Adam in a Trans Am race at the Speedway last year. I get to see Jared at short tracks around, and the Andretti name is really everywhere, and a lot of that's due to you. But it's pretty amazing. I'm going to ask you a question, and then we got a ton of questions from folks that are watching tonight. And some really great questions, so I want to get to those. But one of the things that I've always thought was really fun, and I wonder what it would be like for you, when the first moment that it hits you that the Andretti name, the Mario Andretti name, was part of pulp culture. So for me, it's Charlie Daniels and Easy Rider, and where he's taken off from the bar in his car and he says, Mario Andretti sure would have been proud. Was there a moment in your life where you went, wow, my success on the racetrack has transcended the sport and it's really become more than just racing, that your name became synonymous with speed?
Well, I don't know if there was a moment in the sense that all of a sudden I feel, okay, I've arrived or whatever they say, you know, but all I want to do is just keep working, you know, keep racing, keep loving what I do, and looking forward to the next event. But talk about Charlie Daniels, that was the first time that I was mentioned in the song. And I remember clearly, I was on my way to Riverside, California. I just landed in LA, and I'm on 405, you know, it's fairly late at night. And all of a sudden I hear that. And Mario Andretti would have been proud. I said, what? You know, I had no idea that was happening. So I suppose that was a moment to say, oh man, Charlie Daniels knows me, type of thing. So yeah, it was kind of interesting, you know, but again, it just, you get caught up in your work. That's really the way I always looked at it, and always fortunate to be able to just go to the next race and look forward to it. I've been so blessed for that, you know, to have had such a long career, enjoying every single minute of it. I didn't even want it to let go, you know. But again, I can only count my blessings, quite honestly, and to had the opportunity to retire on my own terms, and then continue and still enjoy some of the driving that I do, which is kind of sporty, but I think it really works very well for for the series and to really give the fans the best possible experience, as close as you could get without getting in a race car yourself. I love that the program that of course Honda have, but with the Indy experience, and I'm just you know, again, I don't want that to end, you know, but for me, I should say, because I'm enjoying it so much, and it's so important to have that as part of the series, because again, it just completes a cycle where the fans have the opportunity again, you know, not just to enjoy what they see, but that experience it themselves. So, and we got to keep that one going strong.
So one of the questions we got from a fan is really along the lines of the two-seater. You know, I've heard the stories about Mario checking his trap speed, making sure that you've got the fast car and you're the fastest guy out there. You're still competitive to this day. That even in the two-seater, you want to make sure that the folks that ride with you get the best ride. We had somebody ask, is there a ride that you really remember where somebody screamed so loud that you could hear them through the car, or anything in particular about a ride that really sticks out in your mind from a ride that you gave to somebody that was memorable?
There are quite a few, actually. Again, you know, a lot of people just react in different ways, but some actually really express, you know, there's a lot of, you know, like I said, the energies and the scream. And one that actually screamed pretty loud was Lady Gaga. She was my passion, the 100th anniversary here at Indianapolis. And she was a hoot, you know, because I think she truly enjoyed it. She didn't know what to expect, but many don't. But I think she truly enjoyed that, and she was just singing away, you know. And I just love that. I love that reaction.
So the cool story about her, and I think she was so excited to meet you that I think she FaceTimed her mom from the grid there with you, because she wanted her mom to know. And as you know, the people that ride in the two-seater with you, they put on a fire suit that they get to wear, but they're supposed to give it back. But I don't know if you know or not, Lady Gaga said, "I'm not giving it back because Mario Andretti touched it." And we were like, "Okay, you can have that one. Go ahead and keep it with you." So I think you're exactly right. She was really thrilled to have that opportunity to do that with you. We had a couple of other fans who talked about knowing how much you don't just love to enjoy life in the car, but even off when you're at home. Relaxing to you often at times includes speed. So some folks have asked, are you still snowmobiling? Are you still flying? Are you still doing some of those things that you did sort of to unwind when you weren't in a race car?
Yeah, I do everything actually, and I'm a toy freak. You know, we have this property up and you know, just north from here, about 70 miles up in the Poconos, and I've had that for a long time, since the late 60s, and we have a lake and everything, and so it's proper for coming up with any toy that's possible, things that obviously make some noise. And yeah, I haven't given up anything. You know, we do snowmobiling, as you know. It didn't snow much this past winter, but we're ready for it, and we have all the machines, and of course we have four-wheelers. We have all kinds of watercraft, sea-doos, wet bikes, and surf jets, and you name it. I have power boats, and the ultralight. I fly my ultralight. I still ski. I water ski, you know, slalom, and again, I just love to play tennis. We have tennis courts up there. So to stay active is something that I've always enjoyed, always in between events too. And it's been a perfect place for us. And of course, you know, whenever possible, Mark was up there a lot because he has a cabin just nearby as well. And again, you know, Michael with the kids, he comes over, spends time there, even, you know, I mean, they're not during the season. So as a family, you know, we really enjoy with friends. And again, I haven't given up anything yet. So we'll just keep her going.
That's great. Yeah. Another question. This one was really interesting to me as a race car driver, and then somebody that really understands the sport and has had an opportunity to race just about anywhere. If you were talking to Jay Fry today and Jay said to you, "Hey, Mario, tell me the 2 tracks where IndyCars never run that you think IndyCar should run." Do you have any tracks in your mind where you think that it'd be great to see IndyCar run? Doesn't have to be in the US even. This is just a dream. If you thought of someplace where the NTT IndyCar Series should go, what tracks would you suggest where they've never been?
Let's go to Spa in Belgium. And then we go to Italy and Monza.
Yep.
In Italy. How about that?
Those would be two
Come to
pretty
try to work a deal.
two pretty proper tracks for sure to head to without a doubt. Road cars. Any favorite road cars that you've had over the time that have been in your collection, or anything that and maybe start with the first favorite road car that you had, and then anything that's evolved from there.
Well, the first sports car I ever had was an Austin Healey 6000. You know, way back when.
Yep.
Deanne and I just had two cars, two family cars. Back, back in close to about 1965. Actually, that's when I had my very first new car. But along the way, I was fortunate enough to be able to treat myself with always nice sports cars, and it started with Ferrari. My very first Ferrari was in 72 Daytona, which was phenomenal. I've had a few Ferraris along the way, and I treat myself with Lamborghini Corvettes. I've had Corvettes up the kazoo, which I still do. I just love cars, but I always just love the latest and greatest. I love the technology and what's available today. It's so much fun for any car guy, there's so much to choose from. And again, to totally enjoy. And again, that we're fortunate that the automobile industry is so incredibly creative, leading edge of technology in every way. And for car guys, I mean, these are the best times ever.
So what about a manual? Are you okay that cars are going away from the manual and now it's more that automatic paddle shifting, or are you still kind of the old school, give me a car that?
I like the paddle shifting. Paddle shifting. I mean, what the heck? I mean, you just make it easier. You go faster, And my ZR1 Corvette, I have the manual, the last of the manuals, but the 7-speed manual. So I enjoy that. But then the next one will have paddles, no question. And my Lamborghini has paddles, So and when you're in a modern race car today, you got paddles. I mean, your simulators have paddles.
Yep.
And that's the way to go. I mean,
Yep.
Let's face it. You got both hands on the wheel and you're shifting. You don't have to do it like we used to have to take one hand off and in the middle of the corner, for shifting. So, anything that allows you to go faster.
Seems like it would be the Mario Andretti answer. You've gotten to drive a whole ton of different cars in your career, a whole bunch of things. By the time you were getting ready to retire, the kart car was an unbelievable race car. Can you talk a little bit about how fun that car in the 90s was to drive?
Yes, it was absolutely fun because we were coming up to technology where, again, like a power shifting and, even when those was sequential and all that, but, quick shifting and then a lot of power. We love the power that we were able to, to use and qualify with, especially. And so, again, it was a great period of time that we enjoyed tremendously. As you can see, the speeds that we were running then, there's still some records up there, from the 90s. So I'm just so happy that I was, able to be part of those decades like that. But again, what I like to see that the safety of the cars today gives our young guys, our guys, the best opportunity ever, to retire on their own terms and have the best chance, in any critical situation, to come through and race the next day or the next race. So those are the things that I really think are a big plus about our sport, that our sport has really been very responsible in dealing with the safety, very vigorously. And again, that's what ensures the best future, for our drivers, and that's a beauty.
So, you talked a little bit about technology, and there are things that still today that the race car transfers to your passenger car. Why don't you talk a little bit, and you maybe know this more than anybody, the importance of you lived through tire wars in racing, and now we're pretty settled in terms of one make of tire, but how important is it in a series that you can kind of take that element out. It's the same for everybody. And then what do you think the tire manufacturers learning from IndyCar that they're passing along to the road tire?
Well, for sure, the tire manufacturers are not in racing just because they love racing. It has to make some technical sense, mainly because, believe it or not, even though, we have a point where we have basically the same size tire physically, but still there's always some tweaks that they're able to do and experiment with the materials, and the construction, but also compounds. And something that will always be learned and will be transferred down to the production side. I mean, it's been like that before. It will be there, again, whether it's in stock cars, or Indy cars. And Indy cars, exactly, it's all about the safety aspect too. With the speeds that we're going, the cornering speed that's phenomenal today is the fact that how big does the safety play? I mean, you cannot afford to have a failure, a tire failure. I mean, of course, unless it's a cut, something that will cut it, but on itself. And this is something, that proprietary knowledge that Firestone has in this. I hope Firestone is there forever, because I would have a problem testing anybody else's tire and going into the first corner in Indy at 230 miles an hour and hope that tires stay with me, the right front especially. So that's the beauty that we have there. But again, Firestone is in it because they're always doing something. They're engineers. It's not that we have today the development that we used to have back in the 60s and 70s, of course, but still they don't stand still. There's still always a different tire, another configuration coming along. And I mean, they even get some of the latest in my two-seater, where I can tell the difference, and if I don't get the right one for the right track, I can also tell the difference because I complain. So that's how critical they are, So again, it's a beautiful thing, and I'm so fortunate that I've been part of that development, from back in the 60s and middle 60s. On right up and through the 70s and 80s, and it's been fascinating, to say the least, as to how important the tires really are. They're the most important aspect of a car, obviously, because that's the part that meets the road, and so performance-wise, again. I remember we used to make some incredible improvements from gains from year to year. In the mid-60s, the first couple of years, 66, 67, 68, we didn't even have to have a different car. We were just gaining 3-4 miles an hour in speed just from the performance of the tire. It was so satisfying, but that's how important it is. And I remember Firestone, even from the standpoint of what they had learned at that point, in construction and so forth, they came out for the street with the first white oval tire. And I tested at Raceway Park. I was testing a Camaro. The difference between like even the Firestone 500s and then the white oval, low profile tire. All of a sudden, it put a whole new dimension, to driving even on the road, on the streets. And so again, it's and all of that was all part of the development that was made in racing, for sure.
So I have 2 more questions, and then we'll let you go for tonight. One of the things I love about you is how active you are in social media, and how it's clear that when you're not busy doing something else, you're watching racing and you're commenting on it, and not just IndyCar racing, but Formula One, NASCAR. I mean, you are really involved. So you're clearly still a fan of the sport as well?
Oh, I love the sport in every way, absolutely. And like you said, I need to be informed. I want to stay informed, with all the majors, obviously. And again, I cannot hardly wait for every season to begin and continue, because there's so much to look forward to. A lot of talents coming on. And again, I speak with media all over the world, and I want to, be able to just comment on something that I know something about. So But stay informed, not just because I purely love it. I want to know what's happening from day to day, and again, it's my life.
So last question for you. When we celebrated last year the 50th anniversary of your win at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, Borg Warner has been giving baby Borgs to the winner. And what I think a lot of people don't know is that tradition didn't really start until into the 80s. So folks that won before then didn't really have a baby Borg. What you had was half of a baby Borg replica on a plaque that drivers got at that point in time. And so I know that the folks at Borg Warner, and you'd been saying, hey, come on, I'm out here representing the sport. I want my baby Borg. And they said, we'll get to 50 and we'll get you one. Talk a little bit about how magical that moment was. And I thought Borg did a pretty cool thing. They took that baby Borg and gave it to your family so that your family could then literally hand it to you. What was that like to stand there at the Speedway last year and finally get a real baby Borg that you could take home?
It was very precious indeed. Trust me, it was well worth waiting 50 years for it. And again, it's proudly displayed, in my trophy case, right next to the World Championship trophy, some of the most dear ones to me. And again, I'm just happy that I have that, because many times, with press or something, they say, okay, let's look at the Indy trophy. And I said, well, I have, so now I can finally display, say, I got the baby Borg. So I want to thank Borg Warner, obviously, for doing that for me. Again, it meant a great deal, trust me, because this race, this victory is one that's always talked about, that will be there forever. And so now I have something really proper to show off.
Well, we talked a lot about how important family was to you. And what I loved about that moment was Borg gathered your family and let your family celebrate in that, because I know that baby Borg means as much to them as it does to you. If we were together in a ballroom just chatting, I know you'd get a standing ovation from the folks who are paying attention. We love everything you do for the sport. Thank you for staying engaged. Thank you for being who you are and loving it like you do. It's a pleasure to call you a friend. It's a pleasure to call you a racing hero, and we look forward to seeing you in person at a racetrack soon.
I look forward to that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mario. And thank you, fans, for joining us tonight. It's an awesome opportunity to spend a few minutes with Mario. Hope you guys are continuing to stay safe and stay healthy. I'm going to go have a Miller Lite now. Thank them for the opportunity for us to chat with Mario. We'll see you all next week on Miller Lite with a winner, and stay tuned the next couple of days when we find out who did. Thanks again, Mario. Appreciate it.
Thank you.